Hey everyone, Namaskaram. I got a smartwatch recently and wore it while I was doing my yoga practices. It recorded my heart rate and respiratory rate and a few other parameters, and I found the readings so interesting. I thought I will share it with you in this video. So I did two practices that I have recorded. These two are Shakti Chalan Kriya, which is one of the advanced pranayam practices from Isha Yoga. So if for people who don't know what Shakti Chalan Kriya entails, it basically entails a lot of breathing patterns, like in certain ratios we are breathing. And then there is Kapalbhati. There is also Sukha Kriya in the middle of it, which is balancing of the two breaths. I think 80% of the Kriya is just breathing in a certain pattern, and then there is Sukha Kriya and Kapalbhati. Kapalbhati, I usually, I don't do too much. And the other one that I have done is breath watching. Breath watching is just what the name suggests. It's again an advanced meditation practice that is taught in the 7-day silence program, which is the most advanced program in the Isha Yoga. So this is my heart rate from the Shakti Chalan Kriya practice. This one, so if you see 60 is the typical resting heart rate, like 60 to 100 is what they say is a very common resting heart rate for adults. And so I have kind of touched pretty close to 60. And again, I don't know if this is like the best. I mean, these numbers need not even be great. I'm actually showing you more from the perspective that we can actually record these things, and this is stuff that Sadhguru talks about very often in his discourses, and now I am able to actually track it with this technology, which I find really interesting. And then, of course, at some points, like this is probably where my Kapalbhati has happened. So you can see that the heart rate has jumped up a bit. Again, at this stage where I've ended it, it has jumped. I don't know why, maybe for Dauti. Maybe all of this is Dauti. So Dauti is basically, it's a small practice where we are exhaling quite forcefully. So maybe these little spikes are because of every time I was doing that practice. Interesting. So 70 was my average heart rate. Honestly, I would have expected it to be lower, but TK, I mean, you know. So this is my respiration rate for Shakti Chalana Kriya. And at this point, there is a huge dip, which is, it is touching almost 7 brpm. If we check online, the normal adult rest rate is about 12 to 18 breaths per minute. So if we go back and see, average is 12. And so 12 to 16 is normal, but here I've got a huge dip, which is 7. Probably when I was doing some of my breathing patterns, like, breathing in certain ratios. And then there is a spike here, which I'm assuming my mind started wandering. And this is probably where my Kapalbhati happened. So I'm a little surprised it's not higher than this. But I guess because in Kapalbhati, you're not really necessarily breathing faster. So some Kapalbhatis, like the way Swami Ramdev shows, actually moves a little faster, but Shakti Chalan is not necessarily that fast. In fact, the earlier days when I was doing it, I was doing fast because I thought we had to, but then teacher actually stopped me and said, no, it has to be even paced. So probably because of that, the respiratory rate hasn't increased. But let me show you the next one. So this is the temperature. This interesting little spike here. This is so amazing. And we know that Kapalbhati increases body temperature. I didn't expect to see this so prominently, just that huge spike of couple of degrees. So yeah, the other interesting one is this stress chart. I don't know 100% how they are measuring it. I've not looked at it yet. But ballpark, it probably detected some kind of a stress. So here I'm seeing this is the Kapalbhati time, because this is also the time we saw the spike in temperature. Maybe the spike in temperature, the preconditions led to this spike, but it is interesting to note this. Also to note that this is the area where we have that nice, the lowest stress. This is the initial breathing, which I am a lot more attentive actually. And I think the latter part after Kapalbhati, I am just scrimping through. That is also another learning when I look at the charts, that this area is just not working. Let me pay more practice. Like after Kapalbhati, I think I need to kind of very consciously bring my focus back, because I guess I'm getting a little I found this really interesting. So these are the 4 charts that I have for Shakti Chalan. Let's look at breath watching. So this is the heart rate chart for breath watching, which I found really interesting. Look at this part. This is a huge dip that's going in. You see, and even the lower limit has moved to 56. So this time, I think my heart rates are going below 60. 60 the average adult resting heart rate, and it's going below to like 56, 57, which I find really interesting. And another time there's one more time where it seems to be happening. So at least couple of times heart rate has fallen below 60. And the thing is that I have also checked my heart rate during sleep, and I don't think it is going this much below. It usually stays around 65, maybe 64, 65. So this, it has a certain relaxation beyond the normal sleep relaxation also. Rest of the heart rate is fluctuating, but still maximum is 79, which is too much, I think. What was I doing? I think my mind must have wandered. I would have gotten stressed or something. I don't know what else it could be. The interesting part is that just looking at this heart rate dip, one would think maybe this was the time I was really having a very meditative experience. But actually my meditative, like when I thought I was in a deeper meditative state, was actually at the end of the practice. So at that time, heart rate is not that low even. Let's go to the breathwatch metrics, because I have a certain hypothesis based on this data which I want to share with you. So this is the respiration rate, and if you see some areas, it is going really low. Like this is almost 7, and these are, I think, my normal numbers. Normal, as I said, was 12 to 18. And we are looking at 7, which I think is pretty cool. Even here it's pretty low, because 12 to 18 is actually this number, which is our normal, which at the beginning and end of the practice it returned to normal, and in the middle of it was actually very slow. Now the interesting thing that I want to share at this point is that, again, I thought my meditation became really deep at this point, and after that I actually came out of it. So I found it a bit strange, because I thought I was getting into intense meditation state, and I'm actually then I got out of it. But at this stage where I was right in the middle of it, I didn't really, maybe I was actually meditating, so my mind was not available to think that, oh, now I am gone into an intense state of meditation. So I found this so interesting, and it's what also people are telling us, right, that the mind keeps fooling us all the time. And I think this is one of the ways, because see, when your meditation practice actually becomes really deep, or you're actually intensely meditating, you probably are not thinking. But then all of a sudden, then you're out of that intense phase, and then you're thinking that, oh, now I am in deep meditation. And then if you have these stats with you, you actually realize there was a little bit of a spike here. So I'm just finding it very interesting. I don't want to draw too many conclusions or build too many opinions that would, I feel, be counterproductive in this whole exercise, but I'm finding this whole thing really interesting. So this is the stress chart of breath watching practice. I do not know what is happening here. If we look at the stress chart of Shakti, Chalana, Kriya, we are looking at as, like, apart from this dip here, if we look at this number, we are still looking at 12 or 13 as the normal stress level. And then there is this spike. And of course, there's a dip as well. So if we are looking at 12, 13, if you come down here to the breathwatch chart, we are looking at an average of almost, I think this is more looking like an average of 8 or something. Because this spike is only 25, while the spike over there was huge. This was like 50, it's touching 50. So this is the temperature chart during breath watch practice, which is standard of 32 probably, and then it spikes to a 33. Maybe it was just about the timing, or the fact that breath watch I did early morning. Obviously, some of the external surroundings would affect this. And there will obviously be many other parameters, like the fact that I did this early mornings. Some of the days I do my practices later, or sometimes in the evening as well. So maybe these things will fluctuate accordingly. Sadhguru often talks about the heart rate and things like that. So what he has said is that if you take my pulse on an empty stomach, it would be in a range of 35 to 40. Physiologically, this implies that I'm in a state of deep sleep. So that's an interesting kind of a metric for us to have. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And so the watch I have is the Garmin Instinct 2S. The reason I am sharing this is definitely no brand promotions. Like this is not an ad of any kind, nor is it sponsored by Garmin. Garmin is a industry leading name in these kind of tracking devices. That's one thing. Second is it's actually built to military standards. A lot of military people will use it for their practices and things like that. I think we can rely well on the reading, and I have not worn some of those small Fitbit bands and other bands. I do not know how accurate they might be. I anyway needed this smartwatch for multiple reasons, and that is why I went for this particular version of the watch. This is also a lot more expensive than usual smartwatches, and because it gives me a lot of other features. I'm just sharing about this particular device so that when people who are looking at these data points, they know it's a reliable watch. I mean, this is one of the best in the market, just below the devices which are now approved by the FDA as medical standard. I mean, there are certain watches like Apple Watch, for example, and I think one of the Garmin watches, I'm not sure, but they actually have the tracking to the extent where it is medically approved that this is fit for medical usage. Like you can track your data using this device, and that data is actually, it's like a medical report. This is just below that level. So in terms of accuracy, I think this is good enough, especially because I'm not going to a lab and getting myself tested for what is happening in my system when I'm doing my yoga practices. That was done by Isha Foundation and a lot of other organizations as well. So I'll link a few of those reports also in the description. If you find it interesting, you can definitely go through them.